Welcome back to Bad Boys, your one-stop shop for all your energy drink reviews. I'm Brian.
I'm Christian.
We are the Bad
Bad
Boys.
boys.
Like I said, I have I got a good one today. I figured our topics, some stuff that we wanted to talk about, obviously some training things, but I went out. This is a Sheets exclusive, so I had to do some traveling for this one because there's not a Sheets that's immediately close by. Um, but little G Fuel,
Oh,
grape
grape
gummies.
gummies.
You know, kind of the can kind of looks sick. I like it. It's obviously the G Fuel, like the video game esque, like it looks like almost maybe like an anime type of deal. Um, a lot of grapes. Looks like there's like little fruit snacks like thrown on there as well. It's kind of a sick looking can. I won't lie. There is only 140 milligrams of caffeine per can though.
Hmm.
It's not an
Usually
extra
like
strength.
300, right?
Yeah, so it's a very light one. Zero sugar, zero carbs, zero fat, zero protein. Complete zero calorie energy drink. Potassium, niacin, vitamin B12, zinc, vitamin C, B6. This is the typical vitamin. This is literally. I mean, we've done G Fuel once or twice. I know we've done it once, but we did three cans with John.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No,
Um,
it's interesting. I've never seen a like gas station exclusive drink. That's unique.
I mean, so
Have you?
yeah,
Like
so
it's just exclusive to that gas station. Like I've never seen that.
7-Eleven has two, well, they had two exclusives with Ghost. The Phase Pop was originally an exclusive to 7-Eleven,
That's where I
and
first saw it. I remember that.
then the Phase, I think it's like Phase Citrus or whatever it is, but it's like the real lemon lime one. It tastes more like a Sprite than like a Mountain Dew. Very good.
So
I gotta find that. We can do that one, but
so
yeah,
those were exclusives before they were kind of released to the
everywhere.
general. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think someone else has like an exclusive too, but they're starting to come out that way. I think like brands are trying to do deals with like a specific gas station or something. The only hard part is like it's great that it separates you from say another gas station in that area. What happens when someone wants this flavor and can't get to a Sheets because they're an East Coast thing,
Right. That's tough.
right?
It's weird. I feel like I don't think I went to a Sheets one time when I was in North Carolina. I feel like I should have went once. I've heard people rave about it, but I've also heard it's overrated from some people. The one
It's
thing I heard is
overrated.
that it takes a long time to get the food. Like if you order food, can't
Yeah,
remember who I heard
I
that from. I
I
think it
think it
was
was
you,
me.
honestly.
Yeah, I think it was me. I Dude, you order food and it takes like 20 minutes. And I'm like, I could have went to a fast food place at this point. Whereas like
Right.
Quick Trip, Quick Star, Casey's, just you roll right
They would
in.
never.
They got a hot bar and it's 12 things deep of everything that just got made in the last 10 minutes. They don't
Exactly.
stop. But I'm gonna pop that top,
All right.
little splash, little splash zone. Ooh, it's not quite grape soda or grape pop, but it's not like cough syrupy either. It smells like, you know what it really smells like? The Mott's fruit snack, the little grape one.
Okay. I was gonna say fruit snacks like Welch's or Mott's,
It smells like the Mott's fruit snack,
which
and
are
a
obviously
little
superior to Welch's.
100%.
Duh.
The texture is everything. But let's see here. It completely different than what it smells like. Not bad. It tastes like Welch's grape juice, but carbonated,
Ooh, I can get down with that.
or like the juicy juice. It's very very light. I remember the first time I had juicy juice. I don't. It reminds me a lot of. Now, Ghost has the Welch's Grape as a flavor that is being released as an energy drink, which this is pretty good. This is pretty close. Like without it being an official branding, I think this is about as you can close as you can get. Um, at least in comparison to the powder from the Ghost Welch's Grape.
Right,
I don't,
right.
I don't like it though. If you don't like grape, you're gonna hate it. But if you like grape, you'll like it.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like grape energy drinks I've had. Obviously, like the Monster Ultra. I think it's the
Mm,
violet one. That one's underrated in my opinion.
a hundred
Um,
percent. I agree.
Obviously, everybody likes the white Monster, but the grape is up there for me, along with the like green one,
Oh, I love
like
the
the
like the
lime green
kiwi
one.
apple. It's like kiwi
Right.
apple or something.
Yeah. I think those are probably my top three for those flavors.
I
Um,
love that.
I feel like I had a grape. Oh, the 3D does it
Oh,
was
the
a grape
3D
flavor.
3D had a really good grape.
Yep, that was
Um,
solid. I feel like I had one from Bang and it wasn't as good. I'm
no,
kind of out
I
on
remember the
Bang, to be
bank.
honest with you.
I can't do it. I haven't done one since 2018, maybe.
Yeah,
It's been so
the
long.
only the only Bang that I really liked, and it was just kind of because they had this flavor and no one else had really done it, was they
Root
had a
beer,
root beer blaze. Yes, they had a root beer blaze flavor, and it tasted pretty close to root beer. I'm a big fan of root beer, so I
big
liked
fan.
that. I haven't seen that in a long time. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of out on Bang. Other than that, to be honest with you, um,
I would
other
personally, I would love to see Gorilla Mind do like a grape flavor.
I'm surprised they haven't.
I
They don't have a
bet.
grape flavor.
I don't think so. I bet
That's
if they
crazy.
did, I bet if they
They'd
did,
be gas.
it would go super hard.
I could see them doing
Um,
like a grape juice flavor.
I could see
Let
that.
me look. Let me look this
Yeah,
shit up.
let's
I'm surprised they don't have a grape.
pull
To be
that shit
honest
up,
with you,
Jamie.
exactly. Mm, let's see. Oh, wild grape.
No way. Seriously?
Look at that bad boy.
Well, I have to. I gotta get that. I gotta get that. And we gotta try it.
It's that wild grape.
I'm all
I'm like,
in.
I feel like I've seen it. I know they had a purple can, but I know they also had another. That blackberry lemonade was like purplish
Blackberry.
and yellow.
Yeah, that one
They
was
did
really
that one.
good.
That was good. The
They don't.
strawberry candy is still my favorite. Um,
It's got that like little like the tongue feel of like the like powder that's on the side of that candy
it just reminds me of like when you'd go to a parade and they'd throw those strawberry candies that are wrapped in the strawberry wrapper,
like
like it
tin
looks like a
foil.
strawberry.
Yeah,
Yes, that's what it reminds me of.
but it had like you ever have like one of those lemon drops, like the old
Right. It's
school from
just
with like a little
yes,
powder on it. That's like I can
yes,
taste that powder in the drink.
yep. The stuff that
Motherfuckers
grandma
don't
always
miss.
kept in the stuff that grandma always kept in the mason jar,
Oh,
along with the Werther's caramels.
and then you had a tin of the butter cookies.
Right. Yes.
Motherfuckers
Yep.
don't miss.
Good times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I do have one of my own. I'll admit I jumped the gun.
you had
I
to juice
needed it and
up.
couldn't. Yeah, I juiced up. I couldn't wait. I'm not super mad about it because this one's kind of mediocre. We found a new Fit Aid flavor down here. I was really
Okay.
hoping it was going to be good, just because it sounded pretty good. So this is peach mandarin.
Ooh.
Um, so like basically peach orange.
Mm-hmm.
Same ingredient profile. It does have 3 grams of sugar, 4 grams of carbs total, but still very low. 200 milligrams of caffeine. And then what Fit Aid is they kind of market towards like a health
CrossFit
conscious
health.
energy drink, CrossFit. Um, so it has the caffeine is from green tea, which I like. It's a little bit slower, releasing a little bit smoother. Has some BCAAs in there, kind of worthless in an energy drink in my opinion. As long as you're eating enough protein. Got some turmeric for some anti-inflammation. I remember we could definitely taste the
The
turmeric when we
turmeric.
tasted that one. Um, Electrolytes, quercetin, some CoQ10, omega 3s, vitamins, some glucosamine for the joints. Not sure if those dosages
It's a cool
are
idea, but like the dosage on it.
probably not efficacious, especially because it's a prop blend, so I can't tell what the dosages
Oh,
are.
yeah.
And the thing is, okay, so with the thing with prop blends, here's you can't a proprietary blend is when they don't tell you what the specific dosages are. You know, they'll be like, okay, like energy matrix, and they'll list all the ingredients, and they just have to list the total amount of, grams, milligrams, etc. But they do have to list it in order from basically like a descending order. So the first ingredient is what's going to be found in the largest quantity, and then it kind of descends from there. So you can kind of, I don't want to say do the math, but you can kind of get a feel for that. So this has 200 milligrams of caffeine. They are required to tell you how much caffeine is included, and in the proprietary blend, caffeine is the first ingredient. So that means everything else
Everything's
has
under
less.
200.
Everything is less than 200, so probably not a great sign. I don't know the dosages for like positive effects for a lot of these off the top of my head, but I can guarantee you 200 is not it for all of them for sure.
No,
So
not a
nice idea though.
chance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the flavor, I thought it was going to be good. It's pretty mediocre.
Uh,
Again, this is kind of a DR staple. The caffeine content I like. It's nice and smooth. I would like a little more carbonation. These aren't really carbonated very heavily at all. Um,
it
but
kind of reminds me of like if you left an energy drink open for a little bit and it
if
kind of
left it
got went a
overnight,
little flat. Yeah,
right? Yeah, so it's not great. I think the raspberry hibiscus is still the
the
top flavor
best.
out of these from down here. I put this probably I've had four different flavors. I'd probably put this at number three. The blackberry like pineapple is pretty good as well.
I
Um,
did like I tried the blackberry pineapple. I did like that one.
yeah, but not terrible, not great.
Okay.
It'll do.
Topic of the day. We'll talk some training here, man. Let's
Yeah.
have some high level S&C conversations.
Yes, let's let people know that we actually have jobs outside of just crushing energy drinks and reviewing them on the internet.
Yeah, so I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, so the thing that I've been thinking about, this is just kind of like very broad, is like, you'll hear people talk about like when they train their athletes, like obviously you might have like a foundational group, a
Hmm.
foundation plus group, an advanced plus group. Basically like dividing athletes into who is foundational, who is advanced, and then kind of selecting exercises, methods, set rep schemes, etc. around those groupings. And it's definitely something that I think should be considered. But at this, like, it's good to think a little bit deeper about the programming. Obviously, like after a certain point, everyone probably shouldn't be doing the same workout if they're in different spots of their career. But the one thing I was thinking about, and I was thinking back to like college specifically, and this goes even for my situation now, like how many athletes are actually truly advanced when it comes to like training age. And I feel like I've done this myself as well, and I feel like people kind of jump the gun when it comes to like advanced athletes, like, and I think we can kind of get confused with what's advanced
Advanced.
as far as like someone might be advanced like at the sport. Like you can have someone that's a dog at football, basketball, etc., but they're nowhere close to that weight room wise. And
Hmm.
especially like thinking about college, like kids are 21, 22 years old. Yeah, old relative to someone who's coming in at 17, 18, but is that truly advanced? And obviously there's some caveats. We got to look at training age. What did they do before they came to college? There's a lot of things that goes into it, and it's definitely tougher in college when you may have only one or two coaches for a whole group, so you might have to generalize a little more. It's got to be practical, and at the end of the day, like how you coach it is going to probably have the biggest emphasis on how well your program works. But how many athletes are truly advanced at that level, and like where do people go wrong with that? That's something that I've been thinking about lately.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go wrong with it because they get bored. I think that's truly like the biggest thing is you'll start to see someone start to even if they're all on the same program, they'll start to change something that might be working simply because they're sick of seeing it and they feel like they need to be doing something more interesting in order to stimulate themselves instead of stimulating the athletes.
Hmm.
And I've done this in my career earlier on to where it's like I want to prove that I'm smart and I can do the cool stuff, and it's like you can, but you don't need to. And is it really worth it? Because the athlete is still progressing on, a 4x5 or 3x5. I'm just getting some strength work because they were young and just strength deficit athletes. Um, and I kind of changed, and we had this conversation. I actually had it with Kel. For anyone that doesn't know, Kel, he interned with Christian last summer, and is
Ramp
now
God.
our baseball, and he is the ramp god. But we were talking, and I said, like, basically, I've kind of removed, I still do like long-term athletic development in that aspect of throughout the years, but my foundations card versus my advanced card, it becomes more of a you're either a speed or power deficit or you're a strength deficit athlete. And if you're a strength deficit athlete, it's a much more simplified program catering towards a lower training age because it works. Um, and I think like, some people they want to do the cool stuff and it's like that. It's like, yeah, but I think that becomes like a conversation where you have to talk to the athlete and just say like, you're not on this card because you're a bad mover. You're literally on this card because you get a lot out of strength work. And it's easy to strength work is easy to program. It's not the fun one. It's a really boring one. But
Hmm.
if you coach the shit out of it, you can get a lot done in a very short amount of time. Um, whereas the speed programming or like a power based athlete to where, your rate of force development is now like your limiting factor or your eccentric rate of force development, your pure power output. If you were working with force plates and you could measure like the net impulse, or you could see, that time to take off, the modified RSI, whatever those metrics are, that might be debilitating to their success. And I'm thinking of it more so in the way of maybe like a stopwatch sport like track and field, where some of those nuances might matter a little bit more because the sport is training itself. Um, just separating that and like they want to do the cool stuff and it's like that's fine, but like you're already twitchy. We just need you to get stronger so now you can get more out of that twitch. Versus, I'm going to put you on there because you're in year 2 or year 3 and you need to be on there. I think that it really, like, people get lost in, and maybe I did in this conversation in my rant anyway, but people get lost in they don't see the forest for the trees. And they start to worry about this is like my plan, my system, and that's what's going to have to happen because that's what I want to do. And it's like, well, it's not what the athlete needs. Like you have to remove yourself from that conversation, remove like your personal attachment, number one, I think. And if they're still getting a ton out of just basic strength programming, now you can, with vertical integration, obviously, you can add in, these other qualities, speed, hypertrophy, resiliency, or even just like jumps, plyometrics, everything enveloping it so they're all present. Um, but their main emphasis can still be strength, and they're still just going to get better. And at the end of the day, I think as long as you're still trying to improve that program, it'll be good. If you just throw the same card up year over year, then it's a problem, obviously. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know,
Right.
once and that's why you like. I like taking some kind of objective measurement other than like just a strength number versus like, are they doing a measured jump or something, and is that going up still? Because if it's still going up and they're improving and they're not feeling beat down, there's no point in changing it because you got bored. Your job is just a little bit easier now because you just have to put in a little bit of variation and it works. But if it works, you still look like a genius.
Right.
um,
Yeah, that's something.
do you see that a lot? I don't want to say like do you see that a lot in like baseball now, but like I feel like we've all done it before to where like now for you guys, you are how personalized, I guess, like are you getting in your training now that you have such a wide range and such a wide variation of needs, necessities, and like a little bit smaller of the sessions on your training times because now you're not in, 30, 40, 50 person training sessions. It's, like you said, like 6 to 12.
Hmm. Yeah, so it's definitely, I go back to the Kier had a really great quote about basically like the toothpaste analogy. Like if you give, I'm gonna bastardize this, but it goes something like this: like if you give an athlete special training methods too early on, you're essentially robbing them twice. One, because you're gonna blitz them with a crazy novel stimulus that they're just not ready for, so it's probably gonna just fuck them up more than anything. Like they'll get adaptation probably,
Mm-hmm.
but then two, when instead of just like exhausting the simple methods for everything they're worth, really squeezing everything you can out of that before moving on to something a little more quote unquote advanced. And then when they're later in their career and they really need that really advanced novel stimulus, it's no longer novel. So it's not going to benefit them as much. So essentially, you're
Mm-hmm.
robbing them twice. So I think about
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, and as far as like the programming that we do, yes, you might think that it's pro sports, it's baseball, the sessions are smaller, we individualize. I can promise you we really don't do it as much as you might think. And I think that's something that like at this level, like it's very similar. Like yes, it's professional, but it's about as similar to college as it gets in terms of professional. Like this is the lowest level of professional baseball for as far as like an MLB organization. These kids, they're not like college guys that get drafted and start in rookie ball where, they've probably been training for 2 to 4 years under a college strength and conditioning program. Um, it's more similar to like high school guys, and I would say even more foundational than like American guys that get drafted out of high school. Because I mean, in the U.S., like obviously we care about sports a lot, probably more than about any other country. So kids are doing strength training. That's kind of the norm. Like if you want to be a serious athlete, guys that end up getting drafted, guys that end up playing like high level college athletics, for the most part, they've probably done some sort of resistance training, good or bad. They've probably done something. These kids down here, it just isn't really part of, yeah, they may have messed around with the weights a little bit, but they're like, in this sense, they are really like pure specialists. Like they don't really play much else besides baseball down here. They're really good at baseball. They're really underdeveloped physically for the most part. So we don't try to like overcomplicate that by saying like, oh, they're pro athletes, this and that. It's pretty foundational. A lot of them are really weak. That we have some good athletes, we have some bad athletes. A lot of them, most of them are weak. Most of them need strength training. Obviously, we're going to touch on other qualities. We're still going to train power. We're still going to sprint. We're still going to throw stuff, all that. But besides like a few caveats to maybe like pitching and position, we might have a little less like grip intensive work with pitchers. Not a ton where we don't shy away from it, but we may change like one or two things throughout the week, but largely it's very foundational. We really only have, I was thinking about this, like how many advanced athletes do we have at our academy? We probably have between 70 and 80 players. Realistically, I can think of two guys that are ready to do like advanced training methods, like looking at like force plate numbers, just watching how they move, how strong are they, how old are they. They've been here for a couple years, they're a little bit older, they're not 17, 18 anymore. These guys are like 20, 21.
Mm-hmm.
um, there's really only a couple of them that I think would benefit from stuff like that and warrant training like that. So it's obviously this is a unique situation, like as you get into like the affiliate setting. I can't speak from experience, but like you get into like double A, triple A, those guys are probably a lot, they are a lot closer to be to being finished developing physically than they are down here. Obviously, some of
Hmm.
them are still, you got guys that will go up their ranks really quick, and they might be in AAA by the time they're 20 years old. I can
And
guarantee
then,
you
yeah,
they're not an advanced like athlete as far as the weight room goes. And this
they're
goes
just a
into another
great
conversation.
skill
Right,
player.
right, yeah. There's a dog at baseball. Like here's it goes into another conversation. Like you talk about the long term athletic development. You know, sometimes people will just I had a conversation about this with one of our specialists. Like there's a fine line between getting guys just good enough to move them up to the next level and actually like building better athletes, because as you go up the levels, like down here, no one really cares if you win the DSL championship. Obviously we want to compete and win, and it's good for like culture, but it's more really about the development piece down here. As you get higher up, low A, high A, double A, triple A, winning becomes more of a priority until you get to the big leagues. And obviously that's what we care about in Zorg is big league wins.
Hmm.
So physical development, aka training, lifting, all that stuff can kind of start to take a back seat because it's more important for guys to, feel good, be fresh for the games. And that's, it's tough because obviously baseball is what we're judged on, the baseball game, but also training plays a big piece into that. So
And you're
that's
trying
something
to
that's really
push the limit.
right, exactly. And we know that like, yeah, it's important to perform on the field, but what we do in the weight room can help enable us to perform on the field. And obviously, like we want to just feel good about ourselves as coaches and feel like it is actually like warranted that we have jobs.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of that too. But you kind of have to take a step back and realize that like it all kind of plays a part. But yeah, I've just been thinking about that, like how many athletes are like truly advanced, and then you talked about it a little bit, like what do you do with an athlete like if they're still pretty foundational, like they still benefit from strength work, but they're in their fourth or fifth year of their college career. This is kind of it. Do you put them on more advanced training means just to kind of like say that you tried to give them everything you could before they were done, especially like if they're not going to play like professionally, or do you just stick to what's working? And I feel like you can't. I don't know if there's necessarily a right or wrong answer there, but that's kind of
I was
a tough thing to think about.
I think like when they are older and it's like say it's their last year, I don't think there is a wrong answer. Um, I think it just matters on the timing. That's like the biggest piece, like the devil's in the details with that one. Um, like you can switch them from your say they're on the foundations card all the way up until their senior year. Their junior year they did the foundations card and they were still getting better. And then senior year, maybe, obviously there's like a margin of law of diminishing gains. Like they're not going to keep making the same incremental progressions. Hopefully, at some point, those had started to diminish because that just means that they're getting to that level that it would warrant anything else. But even if we just say, it's in that bandwidth of it's still justifiably on the foundations card. Um, I look at it from more of like a coach to athlete standpoint of like, well, if they're still getting better, they're still getting better, which means that the other stuff still might make them better too. I would go for it in the off season when you're in control. Unless they're a fall sport, then that's a little tough if you don't have them in the summer. But like say like a spring sport, toss that kid a bone. Let him do the fun shit. Let him do that fun stuff that they'll really like. They'll remember. And if they don't get better during that time, you now have the time, the space to just switch back and say, hey, that was great. We had awesome time with it, but I need you to prepare as much as possible, and then you can move them right back to where they were, and then it'll kind of work itself out. But I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that last year of like, they've been doing the same kind of program. I'll say not the same program, but like the same themed of that program for so long. They still got better. Why not? Why not let them do the fun stuff and let them at least feel in some way, shape, or form, at least let them feel like I've moved on and I got better to a point where I warrant something new. I don't think there's any harm in that. Now, if they're a sophomore and you're like, well, I'm just moving you up to move you up, then I think we have a problem.
Yeah, I think it's a lot about timelines too. Like, yeah, you can really extend those phases out, beginner, intermediate, advanced, when
Hmm.
talking about like a whole training career. But
Hmm.
when it's a 4 year college career, those can
Hmm.
kind of shrink a little bit, and you have to take that into mind. Obviously, like if you know a person, like say like a weightlifter, like you might
Hmm.
train from the time you're 14, and like this is really like high level, but like an Olympic level Olympic weightlifter where they may be training into their 30s to compete. Yeah, you can kind of like you may be a beginner for 3 years, and you may not get to advance until you're into your 20s and you've been training for 10 years, and that's what a lot of people might actually tell you. But when it comes to you only get 4 years of eligibility, maybe 5 or 6 with with the red shirts that go on and stuff like that. But it's definitely something to think about. Like, yeah, you could continue to be on like a foundational, more traditional rudimentary methods of training. But like you said, like once you get to like your junior, senior year, and I think that's another, like, that's obviously like part of your job as a coach. Like, hopefully you coach them well enough and they were able to push themselves well enough to get out of that foundational phase and become more
Hmm.
advanced. Obviously, like the better you get, the harder it is to improve, and that's really with anything: strength, power, speed. Obviously, like when you first start training, you look at weights and you get stronger. Not the case once you've been training for 5, 6 years. So
Yeah, it's really difficult. And if you do get better, when you're in that like 5, 6 years, and God forbid, you go further than that, those those getting betters, it's not I just hit a 4, 5 inch or 4, 5, even 6, 7 centimeters on a PR and a jump, or say, you know, cutting, 5 hundredths, not even 5 tenths, but 5 hundredths off of a fly time. You're dealing in the thousands on like a sprint time, or quarter inches, or 1 to 2 centimeters on PRs. Like those PRs, those improvements are so much slimmer on the margins that like that's what's going to warrant an advanced method, is to chase that, like that 1 to 2% versus a 5, 7, 8, 10% increase in performance. That's when you need to enter. That's in my opinion, and opinions are like assholes. Everybody's fucking got one. Some of them you don't want to hear or see. Um, but uh, like that's what's going to warrant an advanced method, is chasing that small incremental percentage that the basic things no longer do. Um, and I think people come back to that as coaches a lot, as they get deeper into the career. When we're all young, we have that Dunning Kruger effect where we think we know that we have the whole fucking world figured out, and we want to be able to do exactly. No one's going to tell us wrong. And I think there's a point in really good coaches' careers where they start to attempt to learn so much that they then reel back of like, well, I know so much now of, and I'm not saying that's me because an idiot, but kid, like you'll learn so much that you end up reeling right back to like some of the beginning level stuff of do this simple stuff. Now when I need it, I can grab, pull from like these other things, sprinkle that in. Especially in like sports that are a little bit more chaotic, in like a field sport or a court-based sport where the technical and tactical are such a larger piece than just physical training. Anything that happens within the four walls of the weight room is going to be extremely general. It's going to be very basic. All we're really doing is it's truly general physical preparedness. Do we get a little bit stronger? Do we get a little bit more powerful? That's typically what happens in a weight room in those sports. Whereas when
Hmm.
you can make a difference in, say, whether you want to use, Bondarchuk's pyramid of exercise classifications, with, GPP, SPE, SDE, CE, or if you're going to go on the other side and think of like either dynamic systems theory or dynamic correspondence, which I know is a hot topic in the fucking world right now that people can't realize that some shit that you do actually kind of matters to the sport, but it does. But that typically happens on the field when you're doing that preparation because you'll have those things that start to match up, whether that be the force application, the vectors that you're using, the biomotor qualities, and the other aspect of it is the context of the training. Um, do we, on the one side of the spectrum, are we just doing 10-yard dashes and we're getting a little bit faster? Well, that probably has a higher correlation to performance in sport. But if we just do that, we never expand upon it, does that truly help somebody? Or do we now modify constraints and environmental factors or task factors and start to play with some of those to now, even though it's not, I'll use football for example. You know, you can call it whatever you want, but, you can play ships across the ocean, basically like a kid's game. Um, but it's true agility because they have to perceive and react to the environment. They're probably making a cut, high speed decision making. Right now, is it football? No, it's not. Could it potentially make them a more agile player for football? Yes, I'll put money on that. Things like that can make a difference, and they have a higher correlation factor to success in the game, I would assume. And there's not too many studies on it, to be honest, but I would assume that the athlete A who's a little bit more agile, a little bit better of a mover, can perceive and react to the environment and make a decision in milliseconds or fractionals of milliseconds versus athlete B who's a great squatter and kind of moves like shit. And I know that that's like two extreme ends of like that dichotomy, but there's like there is that bandwidth in the middle of like, well, we can start to push someone this way towards that great mover and better, you know, sport player, and things like that. And I just I'm off in a tangent right now, but um, I think you can do so much basic stuff. Bringing this back is you can do so much basic stuff inside of a weight room. The more chaotic a sport is, and where you will start to shine and make a difference is going to be in that field work that you're doing, whether that's your conditioning, your speed work, or your change of direction work, or your agility work, whatever you're doing out there. And that can be easily advanced and progressed. Meanwhile, you're still doing basic stuff inside the weight room. I don't think they have to move with each other or away from each other at one point or another. I think it can be two separate things as they climb and differentiate. And it's not a linear process. It's more of, spatial thinking is what I would say to the aspect of like, instead of it being step one, step two, step three, it's step one back here and all the way around. But that's one idiot's opinion. But I think that would be my case, that I would be pleading.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was fire, honestly. That makes me think about another thing I've been thinking is like when you think of like, are there actually like advanced training methods, quote unquote? Because I feel like I've gotten into a space sometimes where you think like, oh, like this stuff is for this athlete, but like you can't do it with like more foundational athletes. Like it's only like it's advanced, right? But is it that, or is it more about like how you program it and how you choose to use it? Because I thought about this with like VBT. Like at first I was like, oh, like it's more for, you don't really need that until you're more advanced, but it can also be used for more foundational athletes, maybe just in a different manner, stuff like that. Same thing with like overcoming isometrics. Like I didn't really know I still don't know a ton about them, but I definitely knew less about them before I took this job. And at first I was like, oh, like that's more for people that are more advanced. Like we probably shouldn't use those. And I've kind of gone back and forth, and I'm like, okay, but maybe it's more about like how and when we use them, the volumes we use them in, and what we're using them for. There's nothing really to say like this person can or can't do that. Now there's some things where it's just like, okay, like I feel like I feel like what made me think of this whole discussion in the first place was for some reason on Instagram I've been seeing a lot of people do like accentuated eccentrics like AEL, and
I've
I'm
seen it
like,
so much lately.
have you seen it too?
It's like the hot thing. This has been like I thank you. And I
It's
just
the
don't like
new fucking toy. It's the new
pulling
shiny car
plates
on the
off.
block.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
have like the word they have the
The
there's like
weight
the equipment for it.
releasers.
Yeah, and
The
like
weight releasers.
yeah, like I've definitely heard about it a lot more like cuz I know they use that sometimes with more advanced people, but I've seen it like in on Instagram in like college setting like oh like advanced so and so training, and I see like I've seen it been used with male and female athletes, and I'm just like, damn, am I missing something? Like, should I be fucking looking into this? To me, it's just like one, like it fucking takes a lot of time, especially if you don't have the weight
Yeah.
releasers. Like, I can't be standing and you got to
Or
pull the
have
plates
two
off at the same
people. You have
time.
two people pulling plates off because someone's
Right,
down there holding it.
exactly. And it's just like it's that. It seems like to me that's something that does seem like pretty advanced. Like I would probably not do that. I wouldn't do it with anyone we have down here.
Hmm.
Like it's just you got to figure out okay what's whatever 110 120% of their max, and then we're going to take this off so it's x% of their max whatever.
Hmm.
And it just seems to me I'm like damn, is this really like are
Worth
these
it?
people like yeah, and I'm like damn, are these people like really like am I that bad of a coach that like I'm missing out on this? And it's just that's what made me think about like advanced athletes in general. I was like what the fuck, like I'm seeing this all of a sudden I'm seeing it super often.
I think I'll say this. No, I'm not. This isn't me taking a pot shot at anybody. You know, if you guys have the equipment, you have the time, and you feel like your training, your athletes or your sessions necessitate that method, go for it. Just do me a favor. Don't be fucking glued to the method. Be glued to the principle that you wanted to warrant that method. Um, Me personally, though, I'm probably never going to use it. I don't think it's worth it in my time. And I think that's more so based off of my situation. I don't think it's necessarily the movement or the method's fault. It's just, I don't have weight releasers. If I did, I don't know if I have anyone that warrants me utilizing a weight releaser. I don't have the time. Stuff like that takes a lot of time. I don't have an hour and a half training session or only a couple athletes in at a time to where you can take that focus and energy and really modify a 55-minute session for one or two, three, four individuals. Um, Along with that, I don't have enough people doing the same thing at the same time, I guess, in a certain sense, to be able to say, hey, you guys are going to pull this weight off and wait here while we're doing this. Because again, my session is, 45 minutes. I need them to get the other stuff that they're doing. And if I can get at least marginally the same impact on athleticism, whether that be for eccentric strength, eccentric rate of force development, and a different method that's less invasive to the session, that's what I'm doing. Um, Now, the argument wise on is that, you know, are we doing enough for an advanced level athlete? This is my thing. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying anything about anyone, but if we're if say we're squatting, if it's me, right? Let's put it this way: if it's me and I got 185 on the bar and say a squat and I'm doing an AEL, is that worth it, or should I just be squatting?
Yeah, just squatting more weight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think it like you need to be justifiable in that sense, and maybe this is a way for someone to get them to that point. But I think what you would need to do is honestly just load the bar up a little bit more, maybe modify your sets and reps, and it becomes easier. Um, but a lot of people don't want to do that because it's so simple. They're scared of doing the basics savagely well. And you
Right.
can do that. Not my quote. That's a Kel quote. I'll give him that. Um, but you can do that and get just as good, perhaps even more, because now you're able to withstand that load all the way through the eccentric, possibly even stop and do a pause and have no uh, actual movement change within the muscle fiber type. And then you'll be able to concentrically get it that same weight up and have that contraction. If you're overloading an eccentric, we can withstand it, but are we strong enough to produce the force to get that back out? It's the same thing with like a mobility exercise where someone's like, well, I want to be more mobile. All right. So you can get into a position, but you can't produce enough force to get back out of the position. Well, now we've made a detriment. We haven't made you better. We've made a problem because now you can get into a position that you can't produce force in. And that's more of like a parallel than it is a direct correlation. But I, I don't know. I don't see a lot in the terms of AEL. I don't see a ton of justification to make sure that you do that. Now, if you do it and you have the means in the facility, by all means, go for it. I bet it's a sick, fun time, and I wouldn't be surprised if half the coaches put it on there, knowing that there's probably a simpler method, but it's basically them throwing their athletes a bone and saying, "You want to do something cool?" To kind of similarly do something else. Now, I don't know if that makes a headache for themselves or not, but if that's their justification for doing it, I don't see a problem. Throw the
Yeah.
athletes a
No,
bone, let them have fun in the session.
exactly. Yeah, and that's I feel like that's how you learn. Like you would probably find a harder time getting better as a coach if you just were like, oh, they're all foundation. I don't need to throw anything. Like you would never try anything new. Like being like, oh
Mm-hmm.
nope, don't need to mess around with French contrast. Don't need to mess around with triphasic, anything else. No VBT. Like you can do all that stuff with really most level of athletes as long as you coach it well and like prescribe it in a sensible manner, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part.
I'd say so. The one, like kind of going back to this with you, like you used when you were at Elon, you had a little bit more foundational level athletes in some groups, and you were having VBT with them. I've told you this probably, 5 or 6 times. I love the way that you had it. Because most of all, VBT puts an objective measurement on what they're doing. Whether that, and I think it measures the intent very well, which is what I like. I can have an athlete move a sub-maximal weight much faster with max intent than a grinding super heavy load. And it's probably better for my sport in the sports that I'm coaching for. Um, so why not have them move it super fast? Even
Right.
if they are, say four RAR, five RAR, even three in some cases, or an RPE 6, RPE 7, or 65 to 75%, whatever you want to use as your measurement for loading. Strap a VBT on it, see how fast it moves. There is a correlation of numbers that you should be in X zone for this percentage. If you're not, then A, we're either stronger than we are, or B, we don't either have the intent or we're not as strong as we think we are.
Right.
So it's just another tool. Um, and I think it's a good tool to use in order to be able to communicate something other than you saying it. And I know a lot of coaches might not like that idea, and you should be able to describe exactly what you're going for. But sometimes kids don't realize what fast or moving something fast actually means until you strap a number on it and they see, wow, that was actually really slow. It's
Right.
like using a whiteboard to tell somebody something. That's why teachers have chalkboards or whiteboards or 90-inch monitors now because it's 2024. But that's why they have that versus them just talking at kids. It's the same thing.
100%. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Um, I was talking I was talking to someone about VBT the other day, and there's kind of really a couple people, and they kind of had opposing viewpoints on it. One guy really liked it. One guy, I'm gonna say disliked it. More said like think people use it in a way that it's like they don't use it in the proper way. Like I think
Hmm.
you touched on it. Like as far as like intent goes, I think that's probably the best benefit of it. Like yeah, you can see like the objective stuff, but like athletes are just more inclined when there's something like that that's going to show an actual number. They're probably going to
Hmm.
try a little bit harder, especially if their friend is going to do it right after them and they don't want to lose to them because they're going
Hmm.
to athletes like to compete. um but yeah, what is, because obviously like people are big on the zones now, um and all the stuff that like Brian Mann is obviously like published, but it's
Yeah.
also, but that's, and I didn't really know this until I had a conversation about it. Like VBT, yeah, it's like kind of newer, but it's also been around for a long time. People just kind of like forgot about it. I think
Hmm.
when it first originated, it was more of like many things in training today, it originated in like Olympic weightlifting, and it really was like a modulator for like testing readiness. People would use it before a session, warm up to X percentage of 1 RM, and if it
See how
was
fast it
between
moves.
this, yeah, and then they would adjust the workout based on that. Now, definitely takes a little bit longer. That's not really what people use it for as much now. You
Hmm.
can still use it for like readiness stuff, but it takes a lot of time to like, especially in college, like adjust the whole workout based on that. It's a little bit tougher, but I do think. What are your thoughts on, obviously like there's the 5 zones or whatever? Do you think people use the zones correctly? Because I've heard the argument about like you should be either, you got your absolute strength that's moving pretty slow, or you want to move it really fast. What is there benefits, and what are the benefits to kind of going in the middle zones? Or is it more just about seeing, okay, I did X amount of weight, say I did 225, but I over time I've moved 225 at a faster velocity over time, because that's obviously like tracking some sort of progress. If I move it at point 0.7 and then 4 weeks later I'm moving it at point 0.8, and then a year from now I'm moving it at 0.93, I've gotten better in, that's a metric to measure progress in some sense.
Okay. This is going to sound bad, and this is going to get us in trouble a little bit, but I'm going to say it. I think anyone who tries to put too much constriction on, say, you're either in this zone or you need to be in this zone, I think that's a problem. And the reason for that being is it makes you scared to program and test things out that may work or function in those middle zones. And this is more so in the aspect of like the VBT. Is it fast enough to be a speed exercise? Is it fat, or is it slow enough or heavy enough to be a strength exercise? It has to be one or the other. It doesn't necessarily have to be. Um, and again, going back to this, like everything we do in the weight room is going to be, for the most part, pretty general. Um, Nothing is going to beat sprinting, max effort in terms of speed of movement, forces on the body, maybe an altitude drop from a very high weight. But are you also landing that on a single leg, having the stretch shortening cycle, the amortization within the stretch shortening cycle, rebounding that out? Nothing will beat that. Motor unit recruitment, rate of force development repeatedly, um, other, central nervous system stimulus, um, essentially going through the size principle with the rate of motor unit recruitment. Um, Nothing will beat that. So when you understand that and you take everything else with a grain of salt, those little details that people become, I guess, like fixated with, it becomes less important. And it's like, well, what am I just trying to go for? Right? I think like the force velocity curve is a spectrum, and it's a spectrum for a reason, because you can blend as you go up and down it as you want to go towards max strength or max speed, you know, X percentage or in what speed. Now, I think a lot of it's just dealing with semantics. 0.83 isn't that much different than 0.85. You know, I think Matt Van Dyke had like he had a chart. I think it was in his book with Max Marzo. Around 0.99 is like optimal for power production as a speed. That's great. Um, and it's nice to have that exact number so you know what is the most optimal. You walk it back into pragmatism, probably means somewhere between zero point 0.9 and 1.1.
Right.
Anywhere in there, you're probably going to optimize some power. And I think that might be one of those ones where we kind of split in between two zones. Um,
Yeah.
I don't have the chart in
Which is
front of me
taboo for
to
some people, but
exactly, yeah. So it's like if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I don't think you have to. The whole point is that especially like with like a barbell method for us, 90% of what you're doing is should be tried and true, certified. 10% is experimental. That's our job is to be experimental in some way, shape, or form in order to see if we can find something new that helps better the field. And I don't think that's not like a written rule, but I think it's the mark of a good coach who wants to experiment and see what they can do to help set them apart in a competitive edge, whether that be pro sports like you, collegiate like me, or even just some private trainer who's wanting to compete against the rest of the field so that way they can guarantee themselves business. What sets you
right.
apart and makes you valuable. Um, Whereas if you only follow whatever rules you're having and you're scared to break those rules, well, you kind of have just set yourself back a little bit. That's
Right.
just I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
agree. I agree. Yeah, it's definitely good to know the rules well before you break them. Like you
Hmm.
said, the 90 and the 90, kind of the 90-10 rule there. But yeah, it's that was one of the things that came up is like force velocity curve. You got your like low velocity movements, max strength, and then people will think about like, okay, like a max strength, and then maybe down here is like high velocity with like loaded jumps, Olympic lifts, etc. But then way over here, you have something like a sprint where it's not like yes for the weight room, but you can't really compare. Like what's I'm trying to think of the fastest. When we would just do empty barbell CMJs at
I think
Elon
we're
and
hitting three.
three like low threes. A couple of
Yeah,
the really springy guys would get into the low three, so 3 meters per second. I guarantee you those guys that are hitting 21, 22 miles an hour are covering 10 meters per second, probably close to that, like 8, 9, 10. Like it's not really in the
yeah.
same ballpark, which is
No,
fine. Like,
but
but
what you
just
can do
know,
is those things are different, and
yes, they are
there's
different.
gonna
Like,
be yeah.
yeah,
Like
that's
I measured it with we had a VBT unit that's Bluetooth, and what I basically did is just I strapped it onto my athlete's ankle and measured. I used like the throw function to make it as like a horizontal movement versus up and down, and I measured basically the 0 point step outside of the block to see how fast he was moving. And I think it has something to do over like I think Chris Corfus had like 3.2 meters per second. If you could exit the blocks at that speed, that 0 point step, you were more likely to run sub 11 in the 100 meter. Well, 3.2 out of the blocks, or even the first step out of a sprint, is already marginally faster than most of the people's best performance in, say, an empty barbell loaded jump.
yeah, it's fast.
So, like, the pinnacle of one is touching essentially the basis or the slowest part of the other. They're they can correlate, and as one goes up, the other probably goes up, but it's not like this will equal this in any way, shape, or form. I just think they're too far apart.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. Like I hadn't really thought about that. Like that just shows you that you need the weight room and the field. Like you can't just get fast in the weight room. You obviously can't just get strong on the field. Like you need both. You need both
Mm-hmm.
for pretty much every sport, I would argue. So
I think you should because it develops a more robust athlete. It's our job to increase functional outputs and functional capacity. And if you only do one or the other, you're shortchanging the development. Because what we're supposed to be doing as the sports performance coach or physical preparation coach, or just if you want to call it a strength coach, we're supposed to hand a more capable athlete that can go to the sport coach to be refined at higher levels of sport. If we
Exactly.
can't do that because we're shortchanging one or two areas, we're failing the athlete, the coach, and ourselves.
100%.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah, we
that was
kind of
good
went on
shit.
that one, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. No, that was good. Yeah. Endless conversations that you can have about damn near every topic when it comes to training. That's what makes it
Mhm.
fun and can also make it frustrating at times because you're probably never going to have like a full, complete grasp on it. But that's what makes it fun. And that's what makes talking with other people that have similar views, opposing views. That's why that helps you as a coach, in my opinion. So it's good to talk
Yeah.
about that stuff. Obviously reading books, watching videos, being on the floor, that stuff's gonna help you. But like stress testing or just like bouncing ideas off other people, that's where I feel like the real growth and development happens. That's why I feel like I miss there's a lot of things I miss about Elon. I definitely miss that, like just being able to have those conversations daily and like finding new perspectives. Um, but yeah, it's good shit.
See, we're not complete idiots.
Yes, exactly. We do more than just crush energy drinks on the daily. Although we also do that, so don't get it
We do
twisted.
that. We do that.
What would you give that
Uh,
bad boy a rating, by the way?
yeah, I think we're ready to wrap this up here. This is a hard one, man. Like I like it. It is very good. The can's kind of neat. It's kitschy. It's fun, but the caffeine's pretty low, I think, and that's like a hard part for me. It wasn't terribly cheap either. It was it was three like 69 for a can for 140 milligrams. It tastes good, but I think I'd just go with a Monster Zero that's 279 because that's always going to be there for me. Like I said, white monsters like it's like the high school girlfriend, man. That you come home from break. You've had the cool ones. You went out, you tried new things, but man, when you come home and she's just waiting there for you, like a Hallmark movie, you just reconnect and it's just there. Um,
And then you pop that top. Mm?
could be the move. I think I'm gonna go. I'm teetering. I'm teetering because I don't want to give a flat score. I don't. I'm gonna go 7-1. It could have been a 6-9, and I think the 6-9 would have held it for the price. But I think the flavor, the cool look of the can, bumped it to a 7-1. Now the caffeine is low, but I can't go back yet. 7-1.
Solid.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I don't even.
give
I
me
really
that
don't
bad
even
boy.
want to. I really don't even want to give this a rating. It's pretty mid down here. It's not bad. If it's in the states, I'm not picking it up again.
The fact that
If
you
it's
said it's
down,
not bad down there, I feel
yeah,
like it's
it's not.
definitely it's a low score.
Yeah, which not bad down here is rough. Yeah, I feel like even down here, I'm gonna give it like into the six range, like 6.2, which is tough. The flavor's not great. It does give you like a good steady dose of energy, but it's low on the carbonation. The other ingredients, I don't really think they do a whole lot. If it's in the states, I'm definitely not picking it up again. So yeah, it's I probably won't get it again to be honest. I'll get the Fit Aid from now, here and there, but I probably won't pick up this flavor. I'll stick to the two that I know are solid. Mostly just looking forward to being back in the states and crushing the
Crushing.
fucking white monster or something like that. Um,
Just a nice little ghost, and then a white
exactly.
monster, and then a gorilla
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a list. I need a strategy. I only got so many days, so I
And the
need to
worst
figure
part
out
is,
what.
is they're all cans, so it's not like you can fly with them or anything.
I know that's the worst part. That's the worst part. So I don't know. I've been thinking about like this is how you know I'm a freaking junkie, but
Addict.
like if yeah like so the main thing about energy drinks or a big part of why we like them is because the carbonation. Like that's
Yes,
one of the main differences between a pre workout and an energy
I,
drink.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Like, could you like yeah, like could you just mix sparkling water with a pre-workout powder and have an energy drink? I know
See,
it
this
wouldn't be
is,
the same, but
but
have you tried it?
this is what I was thinking. Do you ever see like the soda machines?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Like just
like,
put pre-workout in there?
yeah, like the homemade like soda makers. Like you
Right,
can get
right,
like the
right.
bottle and shit. So instead, you get a the carbonated water and stuff, and you basically make a syrup out of like a tub of pre-workout, and then you
Could
just
do
put it
that.
together and carbonate it, and then you have it in a glass.
That is true.
That might be something that we just fucking trademark idea. All three of
Yeah,
you viewing
thanks.
this, all three of you viewing this. This is a trademark idea. Bev Boys Soda Machine energy drink pods.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. I just trademarked
No,
it.
that I could definitely see that. I won't do it here. I don't need to go to that.
But that
I'm
could
not
be
that desperate yet, but
it could be the move though in the future.
it could be. I do like the can though. The can, there's just something about
Yeah,
the design,
holding
the
the can,
lid. Yeah.
actually
But
popping
yeah,
that top.
exactly. But yeah, I don't know. I might get some sparkling water and see if it makes a difference. To be honest, mix it with the pre-workout. I know some
Now
people have like gone
you
crazy
got to
and
stir
done
it.
exactly. I know some people have gone crazy and like mixed pre-workout with an energy drink. I've never gone that far. I feel like have you tried that? Like a
Yeah,
white monster mixed with Ghost.
yeah. It was electric. I did
I
throw
feel
up
like
yesterday though.
really from that or
No, I so
oh
I put I had I had electrolytes. And I thought I had like a bottle, and I drank it and immediately like ran over because it was old and like moldy. I didn't realize it was moldy on the inside. So I drank the mold and just went over to the like the trash can and just
oh
not great.
not
Never
great.
done that. Never done that from caffeine, but definitely from
Yeesh,
that.
yeesh.
Now
Yeah.
mixing like a white monster or like an energy drink. I did mix. I think it was the Sonic Cherry Limeade Ghost with the like cherry limeade energy drink from Ghost, which was electric. Don't get me wrong. It's just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But I'm definitely looking forward to that. So,
Nice.
should we wrap this bad boy up?
Let's wrap this bad boy up. You got
Yeah.
it?
So, yeah. Yeah. So, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Any comments you have about topics you want covered, drinks you want us to try, or really any type of like supplement, protein bar, etc. We're really down for most of that stuff. Uh, Follow us on Instagram. I'm French underscore fit 40.
I am
He
B.
is
Shikuski.
Bishkuski. Have fun typing that one out. And then we are Bev Boys,
TV.
BevBoys.tv, BevBoys.tv on Instagram. We're starting to post a little bit more on there, just stories of our daily drinks. We'll probably have some live reviews coming up there. So BevBoys.tv, BevBoys.com. If you want to buy a shirt, support the homies. Got the merch there. And yeah, stay tuned. Weekly episodes. That's the plan. Stay tuned. Thank you all for watching. Peace.
Peace.